What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to the 276th episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title, brought to you by georgiaconstructioncareers.com. It's Wednesday, so today I'm going to break down the latest rankings, and these are the composite ones, so we'll look at all the various outlets, and then we have a special guest at 12:20. It's going to be North Atlanta head coach Jamie Aull, and we saw them a bunch last season. We saw them in our opener. I believe they played the first game in the entire state this season against Johns Creek. They looked really impressive, and they've recently improved to 5-0. They had a nice win over Class 7A Wheeler last weekend. Wheeler was undefeated going into that one, and now they're on the bye, and they have an opportunity. They already made history with this 5-0 start. They won their first ever playoff game last season against Lovejoy in the first round, and I just really like their team, so I'm excited to talk to Coach Aull later on. But it's Wednesday, and so we're going to break down the rankings. And this section is sponsored by georgiaconstructioncareers.com, and we'll be doing this every Wednesday during the season. But let's start at 7A. We'll look at how the rankings shifted this last week, and then analyze what outlets are impacting the current placement. All right, so in 7A, we got Buford, number 1, again this week. I thought this was interesting, though. You have Buford number 1 by the AJC, GPB, 680, and then Max Preps. Well, the Maxwell, that is the computer rankings. They have them at number 5, which that is very interesting with that calculation. And then score, we have them at number 2 behind Walton, but that gives them a total of 55 votes. So if you were number 1 in all 6, obviously that would be 60 votes. So Buford, 55, that's a pretty high total. All right, so Mill Creek comes in at number 2, and this is really close. So Mill Creek has 47 total votes, and then tied for third, you have Walton and Colquitt County at 46. So just 1 point difference between those 3 teams, and then it kind of dips off after that. But Mill Creek gets the number 2. Only one poll, though, has them at number 2. That's the Max Preps one. Sorry, Maxwell, the computer rankings. AJC has Mill Creek at 3. GPB has them at 4. Score has them at 4. 680 has them at 3. And then Max Preps has them at 3. But that still calculates out to 47 votes. My featured story today that will be up at probably 1:30. I'm going to break down the Mill Creek and Parkview game coming up this week. Mill Creek has had so much success against Parkview in these last 2 meetings, and I think it is a very scary matchup for Parkview because you look at the way the Mill Creek offense has been rolling this season. Cam Robinson has been arguably the best, most complete back in the entire state. Coach Lovelady calls him a Houdini. He can just make guys miss, dart, make cuts, always falls forward, always keeps the chains moving. And I think he's probably averaging 200 yards per game this season. He had 246 last week. And then the efficient passing from junior quarterback Shane Throgmartin is something I'll break down as well. He has 10 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, 76% completions, and then we actually saw him last year in the semifinals against Milton. Their quarterback Hayden Clark went down after throwing a pair of touchdown passes. Shane Throgmartin came in, played outstanding the rest of that game, and they ran away with that victory. And then, of course, Hayden Clark returned in the championship. But he has experience at that quarterback position. He's only a junior, but I think Mill Creek looks really talented. They're getting better every week. So tied for third, Walton and Colquitt County. They're both 4-0. AJC has Walton at 4. GPB has them at 5. Score has them at 1. So they would not be tied for third if not for me putting them number 1, but I seriously think that they deserved it. 680 has them at 4. Maxwell, the computer rankings, have them at number 4, and then Max Preps has them as the number 2 team, and that's what is reflected in a lot of these national polls. Walton has gone up to number 22 in some of these recently. So they're tied for third with Colquitt. With the Packers, you have AJC has them at 2, GPB 2, Score at 3. That's behind Buford and our poll. 680 has them at 2, and then the Maxwell rankings have them at number 7, and Max Preps at 4. So as much as my number 1 gives Walton a boost for number 3, the Maxwell having Colquitt all the way at 7, I think it hurts them and puts them in that tie. So then it drops off by 14 points for the number 5 team, Carrollton. So 46 points apiece for Walton and Colquitt, only 34 for Carrollton. They come in at number 5. They're 4-1. They've won 4 straight since that loss to Hughes in the opener. AJC Him is at 5, GPB 3, Score 5, 686, Maxwell 8, Max Preps 5. All right, so this is where it gets interesting. Number 6 at this point is Parkview. They're 4-0. They have 27 total points. I just think that Mill Creek Parkview matchup is a game that's obviously going to shake up the polls. You have a number 2 against a number 6, and Mill Creek has never won by less than 30 points against Parkview in these previous 2 meetings. At number 7, Milton. The highest they are is in the Maxwell computer rankings at number 3. Max Preps has them at 9. We have them at 6. AJC 8. GPB 8. 687. And then for the first time this week, you have Newton at number 5, and that was a result of their big win over Westlake. They had a field day running the ball. I think their running back had 4 touchdowns in that game. I was certainly impressed by that result. They played outstanding, and they have some big games coming up. I think the Grayson game is going to be in 2 weeks. And what I found interesting, because of that 5-0 start, which is the first time I think since 1950, maybe 1960, it's been that long, is they actually got the nod above Grayson in the poll in this composite. So they're at 24 total votes. Grayson's at 11. So that's interesting. There'll be another big-time matchup that will shake things up in the coming weeks. You got Mill Creek, Parkview this week, and then Grayson, Newton, a huge matchup coming up. 680 was the only poll that did not have Grayson ranked. The Maxwell, the computer rankings, it's the only one that doesn't have Grayson ranked. So the AJC had Newton above Grayson. GPB had Newton above Grayson. The only poll that did not have Newton above Grayson was ours. We had Grayson at number 8, Newton at number 9. But nonetheless, that's going to be very interesting. And then I believe Grayson has that big showdown this week with Lowndes. So we'll see how they look in that one heading into the Newton game. So many good games coming up this week. All right, tied for number 10, Westlake and Valdosta. They're both 4-1. You got Norcross They've gotten some votes, number 9 in the GPB poll. That's the highest they are. They come in at number 12. And then Peachtree Ridge and East Coweta, both 5-0. They also got votes. So that is who is represented in this 7A composite. In 6A, we have a tie for number 1 this week with Hughes and Gainesville. That is intriguing. I know last week Gainesville was number 1 outright, but let's see what the difference was. I think it was the Maxwell sent Gainesville down to number 3. The computer rankings have Hughes at number 1. Hughes dominated New Manchester to open up region play last week. And I think the scariest part of this Hughes team, not only the fact that they haven't lost to a 6A team in years, they were obviously undefeated last year. The year before that, Prentice Air Nolan's sophomore season, they lost by a field goal to Buford in the championship game. And then this year they lost an out-of-state game, but it's their running attack this year. I think it's better than it's been in any of those previous 2 seasons. And obviously Air Nolan now is that leader. He's led them to their first ever state title. He's been in so many big games. He's a 5-star going to Ohio State. But I think that the confidence they have in their run game, that makes them so dangerous. And we know Hughes is going to be playing Douglas County this week. We'll talk about that in a sec. But Gainesville, they were number 1 in 4 of the 6 polls, but end up getting the tie because of the number 3 placement in the Maxwell and Max Preps, where Hughes was never ranked below 2 in any of them. They're number 2 in AJC, GPB score 680, and then number 1 in Maxwell and Max Preps. So that's interesting. Every single human poll has Gainesville at number 1, but then the computers have Hughes, and it ends up being a tie. So that just goes to show a potential rematch could be on the horizon, but there's obviously a lot more 6A teams that we're going to talk about right now. So Thomas County Central comes in at number 3 this week. They leap Houston County, I believe, for the first time. They are number 2 in the Maxwell and Max Preps, even ahead of Gainesville. They've looked absolutely dominant. Shout out to the Jackets. And then Houston County comes in at number 4. They're also 4-0. You got Lee County at number 5. They just had a huge win over Lake Gibson, Florida. And then Marist rose to number 6 this week from number 7 after their big win over BT. Roswell comes in at 7. You got Rome at number 8. Douglas County at number 9. They're ranked in every single poll, and the Maxwell computer rankings have Douglas County at number 5. That is a big leap for them. And so 15 total points, Rome 17. You got Woodward Academy at number 10, and then closely behind them, Brunswick 11, Blessed Trinity at 12, and then check this out. You have North Atlanta getting a vote. They are number 10 in the 680 poll, so that is certainly interesting. But they did make a mistake. I think they have them at 4-0. They're 5-0. All right, in Class 5A, Ware County, 59 votes. We said you get 60. That means everyone voted you number 1, but the Maxwell rankings, the computer has them at number 2. And Ware County did not drop at all after the loss to Benedictine. They still look like the potential team to beat. You have a 2-way tie at Creekside and Coffee with 46 total votes. Creekside looked phenomenal last week. They returned from that national schedule, and that ground game for Creekside has been the real deal. McCrary, Travis Terrell, they're both getting it done and leading a ground attack that I think they put up, must have been like 611 total yards of offense last week. Just incredible production. All right, Jefferson at number 4. You got Cartersville at 5, followed by Calhoun, Warner Robins, Hiram, Kell, Dalton, GAC, and shout out to Ola. They got a vote by 680. They are 4-0. They had a huge win over Eastside. That was their first ever 4-0 start. And the rough part about Ola's season and their schedule, because every team has the 2 bye weeks, but some have them the second week and then later on. Every coach has a preference of when they'd like it to happen, but Ola, they had a bye before the Eastside game. They have the big win over Eastside, and now they have another bye. So maybe not ideal for them, but nonetheless, they get another week to prepare for that region schedule, and they're going to have some big games. They're in there with Warner Robins, Jones County, all those teams, but it looks like they're just adding even more excitement to that region. All right, in 4A, Benedictine, they are a 60-point recipient. Every single poll has them at number 1, rightly so. North Oconee comes in at number 2, ahead of Troop at number 3. And I'll do my 4A blog tomorrow, but I think I got to start looking at Troop. I've always just enjoyed what North Oconee's been able to do. Last season was their first ever semifinal run, probably the best season ever. They lost a close one. I thought they could have contended for the state championship. They had so many talented players. Their secondary was very underrated. You had guys like Jack Fabris, just some really tough playmakers. But Troop this season, it's insane how talented this team is. They've got the number 1 defense in 4A. They're giving up just 7 points a game. And then offensively, this is, classic Troop offense. You got Teo Todd at quarterback, all these playmakers getting involved, and they're lighting up the scoreboard. So I think Troop, you look at both sides of the football and how complete they are. It's a situation like Walton where, yeah, Benedictine, I think they're deserving at number 1, but if you look at the resume of North Oconee and Troop and really take your time, it's hard to say that Troop hasn't at least earned consideration for that number 2 spot. I think they've just looked so fantastic. And you look at last week, they opened up the region against Whitewater. I think they put up like 61 points, and Whitewater's a good football team. That is quite a statement, and they'll have a big matchup, I think, this week with Stars Mill, who is coming off a key win over LaGrange, and that was a game they really wanted to win after falling last year and missing out on the playoffs ultimately with a 7-3 record, one of the best teams to not make the playoffs. All right, we'll finish up 4A before we get to our guest, but you got Burke County behind Perry to round out the top 5. Burke County's undefeated. They have a big matchup coming up this week. You got Bainbridge, Spalding, Holy Innocents. We have them at number 5, but they come in at number 8 in the composite. Wayne County, they're at number 9. Stockbridge at number 10. I think Stockbridge, that Douglas County lost to open the season, that's not looking so bad anymore. I think they are a favorite in their region that houses, I believe it's Lovett, Pace, McDonough, and company. Stockbridge is super talented. And then Central Carroll, watch out for them. They're 5-0. They're cruising. They have not skipped a beat. And then Baldwin also got votes in 4A. So I think overall 4A, it looks like it's going to be pretty wide open. But, the big storyline will be Benedictine. It looked like last year Cedartown had a special team. We know how that game ended. It was one of the closest finals probably in state history. But watch out for North Oconee and Troop, and then never count out teams like Perry, tough football teams like Bainbridge. All these programs we just mentioned are very battle-tested, and 4A overall has done very well in these cross-classification matchups this season. Case in point, the Benedictine win over number 1 Ware County. But let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. We'll be back on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on North Atlanta head coach Jamie Aull. There we go. Hey, Coach, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you guys are on the bye. You've had a great run in this non-region schedule. Just talk about how exciting it is to be 5-0 and just what you guys have just learned throughout this first half of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to finally get to 5-0. We've been kind of knocking on that door for 3 straight years. We started 4-0. It was nice to finish off our non-region schedule, the first season, what we've been talking to the guys about. We finished that first season undefeated, and we learned a good bit about our football team. We were definitely we were unsure of what we were going to be and how good we were going to be on offense this year, having to replace a lot of talented skill guys from last year's roster, but our offense has really stepped up to the plate and performed really well. Defensively, we were very comfortable coming into the year with them, with 9 returning starters. So it was good to see them perform like we know they can on a week-to-week basis, and just excited for our kids. Our kids have played really hard, played really well, and we've beaten some tough programs along the way, and put ourselves in a good position to start region play next week.
100%. And so I think what's also interesting about the schedule, you play the first game of the entire season on a Wednesday at Cal. This past week, I think it was a Saturday matchup against Wheeler. That's a team that you guys ran into last year. They had a great outing, but what was that game like? What was the message going into it? Just how important was it for you guys to finish off this 5-0 start and beat a team that you guys fell to last year, but felt that it would be really important to go out there and just come out with another win?
Yeah, it was very important for us as a team to kind of avenge that loss from last year. We didn't feel like we put our best effort on the field last year against those guys. Didn't tackle very well. They've got a really good running back over there. I think he's a junior now, but as a sophomore, he put 230 some odd yards on us, and our defense kind of took that personally, took that challenge to slow him down, to slow that run game down, and have a better outing. And then offensively, we felt like we needed to score every time we touched it. Now, obviously that didn't happen. Wheeler's a fast, athletic, physical football team, but in the first half we had 4 possessions and we scored touchdowns on 3 of them. So we put ourselves in a position to play with the lead and run some clock in the second half, and ended up getting out with a win.
Yeah, and what'd you notice from that Wheeler defense? I've seen some of their games. They can rush the passer really well, and it looks like they have a pretty talented secondary that makes it really difficult to find those windows.
Absolutely. That, like you said, they have a really good pass rush. They have a defensive end, number 9, that is really long and gets off the ball well, has a good up the field pass rush. And then their other D-line guys are not necessarily your typical 280-pound defensive tackles, but they're all 210, 215-pound kids that are strong. You can tell they've been in the weight room. They're athletic, and they're tough to block up. And secondary wise, their guys always seem to kind of be in the right spot, challenging throws, challenging catches. So they definitely made it tough on us for sure.
Yep, and they have a lot of speed as well. I want to talk about your defense, though. You mentioned Wheeler. They got Josiah Allen, the junior. He really just had such an incredible season last year. Obviously, junior year, he's just as dangerous. But it looks like guys like Zayden Benson, your secondary, they really had to come up, play aggressive, and adapt to play a team that wants to get him the ball, wants him to go off and control the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody had to be involved, fitting that run game this past week, and we had to be sure tacklers. And Zayden Benson is one of those guys that we ask him to do a lot. We ask him to cover, we ask him to run fit, we ask him to flip around on offense and run routes and make plays for us in the passing. Him, Zayden. Connor Hughes had a good game. Chase Linton, our defensive end, had several tackles for loss. So there's a ton of guys on that defense that did their job to allow us to really hold them to 14 points until that last minute score to kind of make it a little tighter than it was going into it. So just really proud of those guys for slowing that run game down for us.
Yeah, and then how did the second half play out? You mentioned scoring touchdowns, 3 of the 4 possessions, but you guys also were able to hold on to that lead and keep them off the board for the most part. So what did you see in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of back and forth in that third quarter. They had a drive that went deep into our territory that we got to stop on 4th down. Then it was kind of punt there for a little bit, and then we finally made a big play with about 3 minutes left in that fourth quarter. Ended up having to settle for a field goal to make it 24-14 with about 2 minutes left, and then Zayden Benson picked one off and housed it, their first play of offense of their possession, to make it 31-14. So that kind of sealed it for us. But it was just a really back and forth, tightly contested game in that second half until the very end.
Nice. And yeah, Zayden Benson, every time seems like you guys have a big win, he's coming up with huge plays. I know when we saw you week 1, I thought that was one of the best special teams games I've seen for a team. You guys were just so dialed in, made so many incredible plays. So has that been something that you've seen throughout this start, special teams continuing to make a difference, give you guys the good field position and helping you guys just offensively?
Absolutely. Our special teams have been dialed in all year. Between Chris Van Zelfton and Bryce Doe, keeping those guys in line. And, we as a staff, we all kind of split that up, and we each have our own units that we'd like to specialize in. But field goal, extra point, I believe we are 2 for 2 for field goals. I think we've only missed 3 or 4 extra points all year, which is pretty good, and the one special we've got to get a little better at is our punt team. We hadn't let anybody block one or anything like that, but it seems like we've got a lot that go off the side of our foot instead of really getting our foot into it and flipping the field. So that's one area in special teams that we've really got to focus on, and we've been focusing on this week for sure.
And your quarterback, Ian Reynolds, he's the punter, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we know he can boom it, but what have you seen from him this season? I know just in person, the first thing that stood out, I mean, you could clearly see he's added a lot of size. He's a big quarterback. Looks comfortable out there, but just overall, how confident are you in him?
Oh man, we love Ian. He's steady as a rock. You know, at the midpoint of the season, he's got 957 yards passing. He's 64% completion, 9 touchdowns. He's right where we want him to be, and, you know, he's just kind of the steady leader of the offense. We know what to expect. He's always going to be where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. He's always going to be leading by example, leading from the front of the pack. You know, so some of those things that you can't coach, he does them really well. And then, you know, he's got a ton of ability. He's got arm talent. He's a sneaky good athlete. I don't think a lot of people realize how good of a runner he is until they see it in person. So he helps us in the run game as well. So we're just really excited about him. We're proud of the first half of his season and think he's only going to get better. Every game he plays, he's going to get better.
Yep, and so Ian is a junior. You have a lot of seniors that have stepped up, played bigger roles this season. I want to ask you, though, it's a bye week. Just as a coaching staff, is this when you guys have more of an opportunity to help them out in the recruitment process, or is that something that's just a constant for you guys?
Well, I mean, it's really a constant, but you know, when we met with the guys on Monday, before we started watching the Wheeler game and talking about some corrections with that, you know, we made sure to emphasize to them to make sure that their midseason highlights are done. We're going to start sending those out this week. You know, it's a week where you can kind of organize that whole process and make sure everybody's on the same page with it. But, yeah, I mean, it really never stops, to be honest with you. But it's something that we've emphasized this week for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, yeah, some very impressive athletes. And then you just factor in the academics at North Atlanta. I mean, Coach, I think you have some really impressive prospects. And then looking at your team, it's an unselfish team. You can't really pin it on one guy each week. So many different players are stepping up. So how big of an opportunity is this going into the Region 4 schedule? You saw these teams last year. And, I mean, how big of an emphasis is it for getting the home field and trying to win that elusive region title?
Right. You know, so we try not to, you know, definitely me as the head coach and then the coaching staff, we don't want to look ahead of anything. We want to make sure we're focused and locked in on our first region game. Just the next one is next Friday at St. Pius. And that's something, you know, since I've been the head coach here, we haven't been able to win our region opener. We haven't won one over the last 4 years. So that's something that is a big deal to us. We want to start our second season, region play, the right way, so that we put ourselves in a good position for that third season, which is the postseason. So, you know, and I think our kids, our guys, do a good job of living in the moment, focusing on right here, right now, making sure we take care of the little things so we put ourselves in a good position to win on a week-to-week basis.
And then this week for you, are there any games you're going to try to catch on Friday for scouting or any plans?
Well, I think Marist and St. Pius are both off. To be honest, I want to catch that Lowndes Grayson game. You know, Adam Carter's a former college teammate of mine, and Santavius, I met him a couple years ago working a Elite Classic game right before Christmas a couple years ago, and he's just an awesome guy. So I'm excited to see two good football coaches take two really good football teams and go at it on Friday. So that's a game I really want to get a chance to see.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that will be awesome. And then I want to ask you just about 6A overall. Obviously, you got Marist in that schedule. You mentioned St. Pius. I think a lot of these opponents are going to be battle tested, but I mean, overall, what's your impression of 6A, and how do you guys feel you guys stack up?
I mean, there's a lot of good football teams in 6A. I think there's a lot of good teams that have a chance to win it this year. I really don't know if there is a true lead dog where you look at them and say, man, I don't think anybody can beat those guys. I think there's a group of teams at the top that you feel like have the best chance to win it. But I think, to be honest, our class is more wide open this year than it's been in a couple of years. So it should be a very interesting November, early December for sure.
I completely agree. It's like, yeah, you got the Houston County, Lee County game coming up. You got the big, Hughes, Douglas County, and then, I mean, the North Atlanta Marist game. So many huge matchups coming up. But anything else you want to say about guys that have stood out throughout this start, maybe on that offensive line, the physicality, the leadership defensively that we should look forward to the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we on that offensive line, we got a sophomore that's playing really good football at right tackle for us, Brandon Anderson. He's going to establish himself as a major Power 5 recruit, at 6'4", 325 pounds, and the way he moves and the physicality he has. Then we got Ben Diedrich at the other tackle that's 6'4", 260, that has really stepped up and improved his game. Even just from the spring until now. So those guys up front have been getting it done. You flip over and look at us defensively. Darius Malcolm's done a great job in the secondary, and then flipping over and giving us explosive plays on the offensive side of the ball as well. Connor Hughes, just a steady 3-year starter at linebacker for us. We already talked about Zayden Benson, and then you look at guys like Jalen Oliver at nose that has really dominated and been able to two-gap and make plays. Xavier Ellison at defensive end. Like, the list just goes on for those defensive guys. Then Grant Thompson has stepped up and had a good year on both sides of the football for us at receiver and at safety. I just can't be more proud of our guys. Demetrius Barnes at running back, stepping up his senior year. He was kind of in the mix last year and had a rough junior year, had issues with turnovers, fumbling the football, and he's worked really hard on that. Doesn't have any at all this year. He hadn't put it on the ground once. So I'm really proud of him, and he's our leading rusher right now with almost 400 yards. But like you said, we've been able to get a ton of guys involved offensively. So some of the individual stats don't look as good as some other places, but when you look at the team stats, we're averaging almost 400 yards a game. So, I'm really proud of where our offensive unit is and how they've stepped up to the plate. And then defensively, we're holding people. I mean, we've only allowed 660 yards of offense all year through 5 games. So Coach Miles and that unit are just doing a tremendous job, and it makes it easy for me as a head football coach and an offensive-minded guy that I know I can trust him to just take it and run with it and do a great job, and it's not something I have to worry about.
Awesome. Well, Coach, congratulations on this 5-0 start. Have fun at that big game this week. Hope the team enjoys this opportunity to prepare for the region schedule. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having us.
You bet. Anytime. All right. Go Warriors. So there goes Coach Aull. North Atlanta is not a team you can overlook anymore. And so they have the big region opener against St. Pius. I thought that was very interesting that he said since he's been there, they haven't won that region opener yet. I think that just makes that game so much more important. And the one thing you can say about St. Pius, yeah, they didn't look good against Parkview, last week in terms of the final result, but they're obviously battle tested. They played BT. They played a ton of tough opponents this season, and they'll definitely need to get that region opener win. Then they'll play Riverwood, and then they have Marist, the big showdown on October 19th on a Thursday. The rest of the games are Friday, so huge opportunity, and if they can come out of that region, they're certainly going to be in that top 10. They're already receiving votes. But let's go ahead. We'll take one more quick break, and we'll finish the rankings on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
Look at that, Graham. That Gordo's cheese dip. Yeah.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
All right, welcome back. So let's finish these rankings real quick. Once again, our rankings, this analysis will happen every Wednesday, and it is made possible by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. All right, so let's move on to 3A, which you heard Coach Aull talking about how he feels like 6A has its group of front runners or likely teams to contend, but it seems to be more wide open this year. I think the exact same is true in 3A, and that has nothing to do with me thinking Cedar Grove isn't a favorite. We saw last year, everyone thought they were. Sandy Creek has the crazy win over them. But there's just more teams that are really talented this year. You got Calvary Day absolutely crushing every single opponent it plays offensively with Jake Merklinger, all their playmakers, and then on the defensive side, just stifling everyone. Calvary Day is playing Savannah Christian this week, one of the best matchups on the schedule for sure. And you got Calvary Day is at number 2 in the composite with 54 votes, 1 vote behind Cedar Grove. They are number 1 in the 680 poll and the Max Preps poll. So you're starting to see Calvary Day get those first place votes. That's a result of their undefeated start, and also Cedar Grove as they take on that insane schedule that would be difficult for any team in the country. They've gotten off to a 2-3 start. Stevens County, who's also been just on paper even more dangerous this season, they are the number 1 team in the computer rankings. That's the Maxwell, and then they come in at number 3 in the poll, just 3 votes behind, or sorry, 3, it's not votes, it's I guess total points. 3 behind Calvary Day, 4 behind Cedar Grove with 51. To put that into context, Walton and Colquitt were tied for number 3 with 46 votes. So that's how much consideration Stevens County is getting. Sandy Creek, the defending champs, they're at 42. They're 4-1. Their only loss was to East Coweta in 7A, who has a big matchup against Lambert this week. Both are undefeated. Another top game we'll be highlighting. Savannah Christian, as we mentioned, is number 5 in the composite. GPB has them 4. The rest of the outlets have them at number 5, so consensus top 5 team right there. You also got Mary Persons with 31 votes. Morgan County comes in at 7 with 17. And then there's a lot of teams that also have been receiving votes, the most out of any classification. In 4A, there was only 12 teams that received a vote, 6A 13, 7A 13, so 15 teams, and that includes Lumpkin County, undefeated at 4-0, Hebron Christian, Carver Columbus, who nearly beat Brookwood last week, Monroe area, Bremen, White County, and then Carver Atlanta, who fell to Buford this past week. The Maxwell Computer Rankings still have Carver at number 10. All right, in 2A, the number one team this week is Appling County with 57 total votes. Score has them 2, GPP 2, AJC 2, and then 680, Maxwell, and Max Preps all have them at number 1. Thompson's at number 2, and it's kind of the opposite. You got AJC, GPB, and Score all have Thompson, the defending champs, at number 1. But they come in at number 2 with the 53 total. Undefeated Pierce County comes in at 3. Callaway, their only loss was to Troop, which I already told you how good they are. They're 2-1. They come in at number 4. You got Northeast, who defeated Fitzgerald, beat the number 1 team. I think Fitzgerald was number 1 at that time, but just a huge win for Northeast, and they are at number 5 with 38 votes. You got Fellowship Christian. They're cruising. Their only loss was to Trinity Christian week 2. They're coming in at number 6. You got Fitzgerald at number 7. Rockmart, Toombs County, Cook, Athens Academy, and Columbia all receiving votes. In Class A Division 1, Prince Avenue Christian joins Benedictine as the only teams that got 60 total votes. They are 1 in every single poll. You got Swainsboro coming in at number 2. And interesting enough, Swainsboro is number 2 in every single poll. And those teams obviously squared off last year in the state finals, and they're both 5-0. You got Rabun County is number 3, Tryon number 4. Irwin County is at number 5 despite its loss last week. You got Elbert County, Brooks County, Mount Vernon, Dublin, Commerce, Buckley County, Lamar County, and Bryan County are all receiving votes as well. And then Mount Vernon, they're at 17 total points, just behind Brooks County, but they're 4-0. So out of all those teams we mentioned, they have not lost yet. Neither has Bryan County, obviously Prince, Swainsboro, and Tryon. But watch out for Mount Vernon. I think they are a dark horse this year, and they've been outstanding. All right. In Class A Division 2, Schley County, one of the top scoring teams in the state this season, a state finalist last year that fell in a heartbreaker to Bowden. They are number 1 with 59 votes. You got undefeated Macon County at number 2. Clinch and Bowden round out the top 5 with Manchester. And then also making the Class A Division 2 poll, 5-0 Greene County, 5-0 Jenkins County, 4-0 Lanier County, and then Early County, Aquinas, Lincoln County, and Johnson County, who are both tied for 11. So there you have it with the rankings. We mentioned the highest scoring offenses so far. Mount Vernon is number 3 in Class A Division 1 with 34.3 points per game, right behind Prince Ave and Tryon. Schley County is leading, as we said, with 45.3 points per game. Bowden, the defending champs, are at 33. Calvary Days leading 3A with 52.8 points per game, just insane numbers. Fellowship's pretty high up there in 2A with 41 points per game, but that's Providence Christian coming in with 51.8. I need to look at them a little closer to see how they've done this season. That's a lot of points. All right, in 4A, Perry is leading with 45 points per game, just above East Forsyth with 42.7. Howard, North Hall, and Westside Macon are all above 40 points per game as well. Then you got Troop and Stockbridge at 39 points per game. The thing I'll say about East Forsyth, they're off to a historic start. It's like 3-year program. That entire region puts up insane point totals every single week, whether that's North Hall, East Hall, Chestatee, North Oconee, Madison County, Cherokee Bluff. A lot of points scored, and East Forsyth just missed out on a playoff opportunity last year. Region 8 is the largest region in Class 4A, so it's going to be tough again, but they are off to an ideal start. In Class 5A, the leading teams are Hiram with 45 points per game, Ola and Dalton. So that's just how good that Ola offense has been. We had their coach on, Coach Causey, recently, and they are definitely a team to watch. In Class 6A, the two leading teams in points are Houston County, 52.3 points per game, and North Atlanta, 45.8 points per game. Very interesting right there. And then in Class 7A, the leading points this season, the leading in the entire state is Walton's offense, 57.8 points per game. Got to think that'd be a state record if they continue that pace. And then coming in at number 2 is Parkview, 46.5 points per game. And then right behind them at 44 points per game is Mill Creek. So that matchup, I told you I'm going to have a breakdown of it posted in about 30 minutes. But Parkview and Mill Creek, I just think it's going to be so interesting. And I honestly, no disrespect to Parkview, I just think it's a tough matchup for them. They aren't completing passes at 76%. In fact, against North Gwinnett, it was sub 50%. I think they only completed 6 passes the whole game. You're going to have a methodical Mill Creek offense that, despite being able to hand the ball off and march down the field, pretty much scores on nearly every single drive they have. Mentioned Shane Throgmartin, the 76% completions, the 10 touchdown passes, the 0 interceptions. I just think I like Mill Creek's offense to continue to get it done, and then it's just going to be a tough matchup for that Parkview offense because how have they had all this success in recent weeks? Well, Kyer Spain has been out, and Traylon Maddox has been the guy. He's been running the ball extremely well. He pretty much won them the game against North Gwinnett, took like 20 carries, 230 yards. But Mill Creek's going to game plan for that. They're going to make it very hard to run the ball, and then they're going to force Parkview to pass. And they have great ball hawks in that Hawks secondary. Trajan Greco, you got Justin Content, you got a pass rush, you got experienced linebackers. I really like Mill Creek's defense. I think it's underrated. And if you look at their results this season, they really have blown out every single opponent so far. So I'm going with Mill Creek. If Parkview wins, I'll be very impressed for sure. I just think Mill Creek's going to make it very tough on that Parkview offense, and I expect to see a lot of turnovers. But that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and get that story up. But before we go, check out yesterday's show of Underrated and Overlooked. We broke down a lot of college football. Spent a lot of time talking about this last week, previewing some big matchups this coming weekend that we're excited about. We talked to NFL. Tons of insight on the high school front also. And then we'll be back tomorrow with Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. And then I'll be here on Friday ahead of our big game. We're going to Buford. Buford against Marietta. It's time to see the top-ranked Georgia team in the nation this year, the top-ranked quarterback. I want to see what this Buford team looks like. And then we've seen Marietta, obviously they played a tough schedule. They played Walton this last week. So I think it's a good opportunity to say, okay, here's what Walton did up against Marietta. Let's see what Buford's going to do now. Let's see what they're all about. How aggressive are they going to be offensively? We know how good their defense has been, but it should be a good opportunity. And we'll, of course, have all these top games updated on the bottom of the screen. We'll have halftime coverage with scores throughout the state and post-game some big guests as well. And then don't forget, we also have the second class going into the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame coming up in October. You can go to the Score Atlanta website, check out more information, see who's in this class. You can buy tickets, and if you're a fan of Georgia Tech, Georgia, obviously a lot of these guys play in the NFL as well, or if you're just someone that enjoys Georgia high school football, you have an opportunity to go to this event, mingle. It's very awesome. Everyone in attendance, you get the name tags, you get to meet, hang out, see the induction ceremony. It's high energy. There's music played, there's great speeches, it keeps moving, and then a lot of the guys that got in last year are going to be coming to support this next class. So go to scoreatl.com, you can get your tickets there. It is a very cool event, and it will be star-studded once again. But we'll see you tomorrow, and thanks for tuning in.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.